reptilian rulers, from Conspiracy, Compliance, Control, and Defiance by Andy Nowicki. Are reptilian rulers. So what are the makings of a true reptilian, be he scaly-skinned in his authentic body or merely cold-blooded in spirit? We must make distinctions. Not everyone said to possess sociopathic traits can be called a full-fledged reptilian. It is not enough merely to be cruel, conniving, and empathy deficient. One must also be smart, well-connected, and utterly ruthless to qualify. To be sure, it helps to be born into a powerful bloodline, but failing that, there must be other ways to opt into this ruling reptoid caste. Of course, I must plead ignorance regarding how such matters fall out in their finer details. I have not had even the remotest brush with this phenomenon. Yet I comprehend, I think, the manner by which a person can grow overfond of the prospect of possessing something that he was previously sure he had to do without. In fact, even temporarily possessing something desirable, which one had forever previously felt destined to having to do without, and in the process, finding that one didn't necessarily have to do without it in the first place, as one had previously believed, can have a plainly intoxicating effect upon one's soul. That I know this, albeit on a more micro level, enables me to sense how such a principle would prove to be even more true if the stakes were higher, at least in the perception of someone whose unbridled ambition and determined campaign for traction have so far yielded disappointing results. I like to style myself a stoic, but I strongly suspect that if the prospect of real power and its attendant perks were dangled before me, I'd have great cause to pause. Temptation is real, understandable, and relatable. Yet what is, humanly speaking, supremely alienating to contemplate concerning the reptilian state of soul isn't merely the aspect of the one who has given in to a grave series of temptations, but instead the contemplation of one who has traveled so far down the trajectory of corruption, committing acts so vilely grotesque that he is barely recognizable as a member of the same species as oneself, and instead appears to have become an altogether different being entirely, one of a patently non-mammalian caste, who may still possess a warm-blooded body, but whose soul has assuredly assumed room temperature. It is indeed a state of being that an exorcist might term a perfect possession, one in which the subject in question is so fully gone that he can be said to have come back around again, albeit in a very different form. He is humanoid in shape, but demonic in essence. He now seems utterly impervious to such recognizably human reactions as guilt, remorse, and pity. Yet at the same time, he has become remarkably adept at feigning such emotions, even to the point of being able to frame whatever display may be needed from moment to moment. In fact, he has such responses on automatic inventory, ready to be summoned forth whenever necessary. These displays, viewed properly, are in fact chillingly contrived in their execution, at times almost comically so. Yet the reptilian feels no shame for the easy, casual manner with which he dons and doffs his phony faces, nor is he necessarily even aware of his own propensity for ill-timed gaffes, moments, that is, when his adopted viperous nature manifests itself brusquely, and his human mask slips severely and very nearly shatters. He might, for example, go off script for an unguarded moment, casually revealing something which had never before been spoken, a mistake which later necessitates his having to backtrack and, quote, clarify his earlier careless remark. He attends to this ritual of, quote, clarification dutifully, almost robotically, again hitting all of the requisite notes of contrition for their manifestly improper insensitivity or thoughtlessness, all the while retaining an essential air of detachment from this prescribed penitential gesture, which in his heart he finds deeply irritating, if not intolerable, to have to perform. He is in fact contemptuous of the notion of ever having to be apologetic or contrite for his behavior, which he instinctively takes to be self-justifying, regardless of the circumstance. Power, after all, is to him its own reward, a means and an end, the be-all and the end-all. Still, he knows that power, while highly desirable, is not self-conferring, else he wouldn't have to endure the vexing but necessary rituals that accompany the campaign to achieve good PR. For this reason, and this reason alone, he maintains his delicate dance of mummery, masquery, and deceit, keeping his contempt desperately contained under a carefully constructed veil of seeming earnest benignity, even as the arrogance of his hatred pulses fiercely against the very people whose trust he pretends to solicit. Calling such behavior sociopathic is accurate enough, but not fully adequate to the task. Those designated as sociopaths are known primarily for lacking a conscience, for displaying behavior that is manipulative, conniving, and calculating, and for possessing no semblance of empathy for others. Shame, guilt, and remorse are for them utterly exotic concepts. All of this also holds true for the reptilians, as I have envisaged them here. Generally speaking, there are surely so many overlaps and parallels between these two groups, the one discussed much in mainstream pop psychological circles, the other's existence darkly hinted at by some conspiratorially minded alternative news enthusiasts, that it may well be said that every reptilian is a sociopath. Still, it most emphatically should not be believed that every sociopath is a reptilian. In fact, most sociopaths, however deficient in conscience, possess neither the requisite intelligence nor the capacity to forge elite-level alliances, nor the sheer, unalloyed, black-hearted, single-minded ruthlessness to be enabled to ascend to such an exalted post as those held by our scaly-souled, black-hearted rulers. Many sociopaths, in fact, entertain little real ambition at all. They are not so much moved by the allure of possessing power as they are by the appeal of managing to elude it. They lead the existence of a catch-me-if-you-can drifter, daredevil, or con artist, indulging their fearsome appetites without consequence and using people however it suits them to do so. Yet, for most sociopaths, this aimless, lawless trajectory doesn't amount to any sort of wide-ranging, far-reaching design upon becoming a master of the universe. Far from seeking to take his presumed rightful place as a demigod among mere mortals, the run-of-the-mill socio only sees himself as a man among men. If he even bothers to take any kind of reflective vantage point whatsoever, it is generally a rather humble one. The fact that he feels nothing for his fellow men, and that he can be brutally callous in his general behavior and attitude towards them, has no necessary bearing upon how he conceives of his standing in the world. Though conspicuously different in temperament, apparent from the fact that he lacks conscience, compassion, and empathy, he isn't the one who views himself as superior, nor does he have an aspiration to enslave others, though the idea doesn't appall him on moral grounds, since he has no interest in or engagement with morality. For these reasons, the standard socio will always be a marginal figure, prone to the commissions of petty crimes or inconsequential swindles, but bound to be ignominiously forgotten just like every other nobody who struts and frets his hour upon the stage for his appointed time before being laid into the soil to feed worms. The reptilian, in contradistinction, aims to achieve immortality and seizes upon a patently grandiose notion of domination. He regards himself not just as different from, but as qualitatively better than the bulk of humanity, a species he resembles only in form, not in essence. The reptilian has massive goals, sweeping ambitions, expansive and intricate schemes. He would never settle for being just another low-level grifter. Thus, in a certain ironic sense, the reptilian could be seen as a sort of role model for the simple-minded, unambitious, no-account sociopath. In fact, It could be said that he is the sociopath made good.